what the Miss America organization is based on, what my job this year is based on, these four fundamental ideas that really are shared between Miss America and Amway. I've learned a lot about these four things, especially over the past year, and I've learned a lot about style. But I've learned that style is not based on what you look like, outward appearance. It's based on confidence. And I think that confidence does not come from always being successful. It comes from letting go of the fear of failure. And it's something that we all face. And I know as Amway IBMs, that can often be really a roadblock sometimes. And it's something that's not easy to overcome because for me, I grew up actually very shy. I was not confident at all when I was younger. And that started to change actually through my involvement in Miss America, but also because I learned about letting go of that fear of failure. That at 13 years old, with huge braces and giant crazy frizzy hair, I entered my first pageant competition. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was 13, the youngest there, and did not expect to win that competition, much less, only 4 years later, find myself on the Miss America stage and end up being the youngest in over 70 years and the first from Nebraska. I never expected that. I never had even imagined it possible because I had let the word impossible enter my vocabulary. This word that is truly shouldn't be in any of our vocabularies because I learned through this past year that nothing is impossible. You know, I learned that when you put your mind to something, when you're willing to let go of that fear of failure, when you're willing to try new things, put yourself out there, and break open those boundaries, incredible things can happen. You know, over the years, my parents had two main reasons why they really supported my involvement in the organization. And one was the scholarships, which is the second point on the crown, scholarship. Because Miss America is actually the largest provider of scholarships for women in the entire world. So this last year, they made $45 million in scholarships available to women across the country. And Amway was a huge part of that. Children and wanted to pursue a degree in law, so my father made it very clear very quickly that scholarships were going to be the way to do that. So I was looking for ways to earn scholarships for school, and this became very clear that this was a way to do it. I have to let you know that Miss America is very different from other pageant systems. There's no entry fee to enter, so anybody can truly do it, and you win scholarships at every level. So it completely differentiates it from other pageant systems. And I am so proud that Amway is a firm believer in what Miss America believes, providing those scholarship opportunities to young women to further their education and career goals. And for me, that means that the $50,000 scholarship I won from Miss America now has paid for my first 4 years of college. My undergrad degree is out of the way, which makes a big difference. Looking at a law degree, which is almost unrealistic sometimes without that assistance, that made that dream become a reality for me. But I will give one example of the thousands of women whose lives are changed every day. Because 13,000 women compete for Miss America every year. And all of them receive scholarships at various levels. And so their lives are being changed in every way as they're given these resources to pursue their higher education. And I'm so proud that Amway believes in empowering women with those tools to reach higher, to get a higher education, to go and reach their career goals as well. It's an incredible shared value that's so important to both of us. But you know, the other reason that my parents really supported my involvement in the organization had to do with the rules of the competition, because you can compete for Miss America from 17 to 24. And I was planning on competing every year until I was too old. So I was planning on competing through my undergrad, through law school if need be, to continue earning scholarships each year. And the rules state that during that time you can't be married, so my parents found that as their security, I wouldn't be married until I was 25. So that sounded pretty good to them. But then I ended up winning at 17 and completely ruined that plan. But, you know, over the years, I kind of developed my own reasons for my involvement in the organization that were maybe a little bit different than my parents. Really, my entire life, I have been excel. I was involved in all sorts of things growing up. I loved playing piano, guitar, singing, dancing, acting. I loved academics in school, I really did. Yet I couldn't find one area that I felt that I could excel in. I was good at it all, but I needed to focus on one thing that I felt, yes, this is what I'm meant to do, this is where I'm meant to be. And when I started competing, I realized that maybe, just maybe, this was somewhere that throughout the years, God had been creating me to love diversity and love variety and all of these various things to excel here. And I felt that maybe this is what I'm meant to do, that this year, this is where God wants me to be doing His work. And so after that first competition, I continued to compete over the years in Miss America Outstanding Teen Program, which is kind of like the little sister pageant to Miss America. It's for 13 to 17-year-olds. And so I could continue to compete over the years and never really did that well. Won some locals, never won the state title. And then when I turned 17, I graduated high school a year early, being homeschooled, and ended up eligible to start competing for Miss America. And I never expected that that first local that I competed in, the weekend after I turned 17, that I would end up winning. And then a couple months later, found myself at Miss Nebraska, 2 weeks after high school graduation. And I was there as the youngest, looking at all these other women who had been there for years, who were older than me, and trying to watch them. And I was writing in my notebook, next year do this, improve on this for next time, work on this for next year. It was all about learning from them to do better next year. But I ended up winning and found myself at Miss America 6 months later. And so it was incredible to see how much had changed in just 1 year. And you know, this helped me realize what true success is, which is a third point on the Miss America crown. Success. I've learned that success requires a lot of maturity, which is a word that came up a lot after I won, that people were talking about age and maturity, and maturity has nothing to do with age. I don't think maturity is based on age at all. It's based on your willingness to accept responsibility. That's true maturity. And that can happen at any age. That's something everyone can work on, young or old, no matter where you're at in life, the willingness to accept responsibility. And for me, I think that that includes accepting the responsibility of setting goals for yourself and working hard to achieve them, which is obviously what Amway is completely about, is accepting the responsibility to reach higher, do more, to achieve success by reaching those goals that you've set for yourself. And I think I kind of started to learn that at a young age. I always liked to set big goals for myself. You know, when I was about 7 years old, people would come up and ask, so what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl? And I said, I'm going to be a lawyer, judge, president, and a Supreme Court justice. Not what they were expecting. They're like, what is she, on excess or something? But that was always my dream and my goal, because growing up, actually, my dad would always have the 7 of us come to the living room each night, and we would all be sitting there on the couch, all lined up, and he would pull out newspapers and world magazines and talk about the things that were going on in the country and the world and how they affected us. He would talk about how Washington, D.C. wasn't so very far away from us, even in western Nebraska. That the decisions being made there really did change our lives every single day. You know, being homeschooled, he explained that these cases were coming up at the time, that if they were decided one way, could mean that we were no longer allowed to homeschool and we would be forced to go to public school without the choice. If they were decided the other, we could continue doing what we were doing. And it made it very clear to me that whether I was 7 or 8 years old in western Nebraska or 40 in New York, it didn't matter. That this whole area of law and politics and government, I really became interested in being a part of that and being a part of that group of people who make those decisions, who change our lives every day. And so that became my dream and my goal, and ever since I was pretty much big enough to walk, I was carrying banners and parades for local politicians and doing everything that I could to be involved. But you know, now people continue to ask me, after your year as Miss America, you know, with everything you've learned, everything you've been able to do, what are your plans following this year? And so next year I will be headed to Patrick Henry College, which is actually in Purcellville, Virginia, to study government. I'd like to go to Harvard for law school to be a criminal prosecution attorney, and then go on to be a judge, and then join politics to become president and Supreme Court justice. Still the plan, all the way through. But you know, the interesting thing is that in groups not quite like yourselves, people don't quite have the same reaction. That instead of supporting that and encouraging those goals and ideas, I always get this shocked, stunned reaction. Why do you want to be a part of that? Stay out of that. It's trouble. You're going to be ruined. You're too good for that. Whatever it may be. Hear all of these comments. And I think that's all the more reason why I should be involved. Our leaders, there's a problem, and that we cannot continue to just stay back and stay out of it and do nothing because we don't agree with it. All it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to stand back and do nothing. So we all have that responsibility to let our voice be heard, to be a part of that, and that may not mean for all to actually run for office, but to be a part of the system as citizens. But for me, my passion will be entering that arena. And no, it's not easy, but it's something that my generation especially needs to step up and be a part of it, realize how important it is. That we do continue to let our voices be heard, and that young people can't continue to think it's too complicated, it's too messy, I want to stay out of that. It's something that I don't know what the future may bring for me, and that's my plan on paper, I always say, but I've learned, especially through this year if nothing else, that God sometimes has different plans than I do. And so really in the future I want to be wherever I can most serve other people, where I can do the most good, help others, and that brings me to the fourth point on the Miss America crowd, which is service. Service.